When the weather starts to warm up, there isn't anything quite as nice as stepping outside and feeling the sun on your skin. Natural sunlight really does lift your mood. I live in the desert Southwest, so trust me, I know the sun can be both a gift and a challenge. Out here, we get more than our fair share of intense sunshine. Maybe like many of you, I have often wondered, how do I balance protecting myself from too much sun with making sure that I'm still getting enough vitamin D? And I know I'm not alone in this because it is kind of confusing, right? We've been told for years to wear sunscreen, cover up, and avoid the midday sun to reduce the risk of skin cancer. But then we also hear about how vitamin D is essential for our bones and our immune system and even our mood, and that sunlight is one of the best sources. It is definitely confusing trying to figure out the balance between getting enough sun and staying safe. Add to that all the different information out there about sunscreen ingredients, vitamin D supplements, and how much sun is too much. So I wanted to dive into the science of this all and help make sense of it. Hi, I'm Valerie, a wellness nurse. I believe that no matter your age or current health status, that you have the power to take charge of your well-being and live a longer, healthier life. My goal is to share with you the knowledge and tools that will empower you to make that happen. In this video, I'm going to explore the real connection between sun exposure and vitamin D, how our bodies actually make it from the sun, and whether that changes as we get older. I will also talk about sunscreen, what kind is best, how to use it effectively, and what to look for if you're shopping for sun protective clothing like sun shirts. My goal with this video is to shed some light on this subject and help you enjoy the summer, feel confident about your choices, and know how to protect your skin without missing out on what your body needs. So let's start with vitamin D because that is where a lot of the confusion begins. Vitamin D is not something we get from food in large amounts. Yes, there are some sources like fatty fish, egg yolks, and fortified dairy, but the majority of our vitamin D comes from the sunlight, specifically from UVB rays. When UVB rays hit our skin, they trigger a chemical reaction that allows our bodies to produce vitamin D naturally. It is really a fascinating process. Our skin basically becomes a vitamin-producing organ when exposed to the right kind of light. The amount of vitamin D that we make from sunlight depends on a lot of different factors. It depends on the time of day, the season, where you live, how much skin is exposed, and even the color of your skin. People with lighter skin tones tend to produce vitamin D more quickly, while those with darker skin need more sun exposure to generate the same amount, because melanin acts as a natural sunscreen. As we get older, our skin becomes less efficient at making vitamin D from sunlight. Studies show that by the time we reach our 60s or 70s, our ability to produce vitamin D can drop by as much as 25 to 50%. So even if we were outside just as much as when we were younger, we might not be making as much vitamin D as we once did. So this is something I think about a lot, especially living in the desert where sun protection is a daily priority. So I'm very careful about covering up when I know I'll be outside for any length of time, but I also often wonder if I'm getting enough vitamin D, or do I need to be more intentional about it? So how much vitamin D do we actually need? The current recommendation for most adults is around 600 to 800 international units per day. Now, some experts argue that that is still a little on the low side, and they suggest that many of us probably need closer to 1,000 or even upwards of 2,000 international units daily, especially if we're not getting much sun or if we are older. The only way to know for sure if you're getting enough vitamin D or if you are low is to get your levels checked with a blood test. But generally, a little sun exposure combined with some dietary sources and possibly a supplement can help you maintain healthy levels. So how much sun is enough to get your vitamin D? Again, it does vary, but for many people, 10 to 30 minutes of sun exposure to the face, arms, and legs 2 or 3 times a week might be enough during the summer months. But if you are farther north, where the sun rays are weaker, or if you have darker skin, or if you're older, you might need more. But balance becomes very important because while getting that sunlight helps with vitamin D, staying out too long increases your risk for skin damage, premature aging, and skin cancer. The reason too much sun becomes a problem is because of ultraviolet radiation, specifically UVA and those UVB rays that I talked about. While UVB rays help us produce vitamin D, both UVA and UVB can damage the DNA in our skin cells. Over time, this damage builds up, leading to visible signs like wrinkles, sunspots, and leathery skin, what we often think of as aging. But more importantly, this DNA damage can trigger changes in the skin that lead to skin cancer, including serious types like melanoma. The more unprotected time your skin spends in the sun, especially during peak hours, the higher your risk. So it is important to protect your skin if you are spending more than that 30 minutes in the sun. That is where sunscreen comes in. And with all the different products on the shelves, it can be hard to know what to choose or even if you should use it at all, given the concerns about ingredients that have been coming up lately. I have seen quite a bit of concern on social media lately, so let me just talk about this a little bit more. There are 2 main types of sunscreen, chemical and mineral. Chemical sunscreens contain ingredients like oxybenzone, avobenzone, and octinizate. These work by absorbing UV rays and converting them into heat, which is then released from the skin. Some people are concerned about chemical sunscreens because certain ingredients, like oxybenzone, have been shown to absorb into the bloodstream. And there are questions about potential hormone disruption, but there is no evidence that these chemicals can cause cancer. Research is ongoing, but if you are concerned about chemical sunscreens, there is an alternative. Mineral sunscreens, also called physical sunscreens, use zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. These sit on the surface of the skin and reflect UV rays rather than absorbing them. They tend to be better for sensitive skin, and they don't have the same absorption concerns as chemical sunscreens. The downside is that they can sometimes feel heavier or leave a bit of a white film, though newer formulations have improved on this. I never really liked them because they could leave a film on my car seats. So which is better? The better sunscreen is the one that you will actually use and use regularly. So if you're concerned about chemicals, use mineral. If you don't like the heavy feel and residue of mineral, use chemical sunscreens. And that brings me to how to use sunscreen effectively. For sunscreen to really protect you, it needs to be applied generously. Most people do not use enough. You want about a shot glass full to cover your entire body. That's quite a bit. Apply it 15 minutes before going outside and reapply every 2 hours or after swimming or sweating. And yes, even if it is cloudy, UV rays can still reach you. And what about spray sunscreens? They can be very convenient, especially for kids or when you're on the go, but they often provide uneven coverage. You also risk inhaling some of the product, which might not be ideal. If you do use a spray, make sure to rub it in after spraying to ensure full protection and avoid spraying near your eyes. In some cases, sunscreen might not be enough, or if you prefer an alternative to sunscreen, especially if you're going to be spending a long day outdoors, you might want to consider some protective clothing. Sun shirts or UPF clothing are specifically designed to block UV rays. When shopping for sun shirts and other sun clothing, look for a UPF rating of 30 or higher. UPF 50 is even better. These shirts are lightweight, breathable, and are a great option for activities like hiking, swimming, or any time you want to avoid constantly having to reapply sunscreen. I usually wear sun shirts and other sun clothing when I'm out on longer hikes, especially during peak sun hours. They offer consistent protection, and I don't have to worry about whether my sunscreen is still doing its job. I used to think that I would never get used to wearing long sleeves when it was warm, but once I moved to the desert Southwest, I quickly got used to it, and it is now my preference. For those of you hitting the beach, they can also be helpful, especially if you are planning to spend hours in the sun, or for your kids who might not sit still long enough for regular sunscreen reapplication. A white or light-colored breathable sun shirt might even help keep you cooler. So where does that leave us in terms of finding balance? Here's what I have learned and what I now aim for myself. I try to get brief, direct sun exposure earlier in the day or later in the day when the UV rays aren't as intense to support my vitamin D levels. This is usually my early morning walk. Then, during peak sun hours when the sun is intense, I make sure to protect my skin, usually with a sun shirt and visor, but sometimes I will use sunscreen, or I simply choose to stay in the shade during those times. When it gets hot here in the summer, you don't want to be out in the sun midday anyway. And when I am not sure if I'm getting enough vitamin D, I will consider supplementation, especially during those stretches of wet or windy weather when it's not so pleasant to be outside. But I admit this has been less of a concern since I moved from the Northeast to the Southwest. But when I did live in the Northeast, my vitamin D was borderline low, so I did have to take a supplement. So as we head into summer, I hope this video gives you some clarity and confidence to enjoy the season, take care of your skin, and still give your body what it needs. If you are looking for other ways to protect your health and improve your longevity, I have a small step program that will guide you through the changes that can lead to a healthier, longer life. Every week, we focus on one realistic habit to help reduce inflammation, boost energy, support joint health, and strengthen overall health. I will put a link with more details in the video description. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more science-based wellness tips. It really helps support the channel and lets me know what kind of content you want to see more of. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay safe, enjoy the sunshine, and take good care of yourself.